How do you recommend students decide which schools to apply to and how many? And in particular, for a student who may not be able to afford the tuition, but who may not be able to qualify for need-based aid. So in this case, I would say I always recommend applying to a lot of schools. And by a lot, I usually mean about 8 to 12. That's sort of a sweet spot. And that sounds like a lot of work. It is a lot of work. But the biggest thing to understand is that college applications are a crapshoot. And I don't say that lightly. For instance, when I applied to school, I got into certain schools that were in the top 10 and flat out rejected from other schools that were below the top 60. Why did that happen? I have no idea. And so when people say to me, my son is 4.0 GPA, has nearly perfect SAT scores, he's the captain of the soccer team, he's going to get into Harvard, right? Say he might. I have no idea, or he's going to get into Vanderbilt, right? Which is a very, very good, but less competitive school. He might. I have no idea. I've seen students who I was pretty sure were locks for a certain school get flat out rejected. And I've also seen students who I didn't think were quite qualified for certain schools get in. So you never know. And this really goes to diversification, right? And I always recommend that you have 4 reach, 4 maybe, and 4 safety schools. And of course, things are so competitive today that there's no such thing really as a safety school, quote unquote. But there are schools, of course, that are less competitive than others. The thing is that when it comes to, by the way, safety schools, what you really want to keep in mind and reach schools is that it really comes down to more than anything else, your metrics. So if your SAT scores, for instance, are below a school's kind of 25-75 cutoff, right, which is 25% of students, only 25% of students get below a certain score, and they still get in. And these are usually recruited athletes, big donors, et cetera, people who have a lot of special connections, and only 25% get above it. So for instance, at a very competitive school, a 25-75 cutoff might be something like, for critical reading, 700 to 750. And that means that only 25% of the people who get in score below a 700, and only 25% of the people who get in score above a 750. Now, when it comes to safety versus medium versus reach, think about it this way. A safety school is a school where you are above their cutoffs in terms of both GPA and in terms of SAT or ACT scores. So, if you have a 2100 on the SAT and, their 75 percentile cutoff is an 1800, it's probably a safety. It's not a guarantee, but there's a very good chance you'll get in. It's a medium if you're in the middle of that range. So, if you have a 725 and it's 700 to 750, it's a medium. And if you're below that, it's a reach. If you're significantly below it, it's sort of an impossibility. A lot of people say, should I submit an application just for the heck of it? Which is actually a question we'll get to later. And usually the answer is no. I mean, you can if you want to spend $65 an hours of your time and frustrate admissions officers. But, if you have a 1,500 total on all 3 sections on the SAT and you don't have something truly special about your application, you're not getting into Harvard. It's just not going to happen. So, the basic idea is that you want to apply to about 12 schools, 4 reaches, 4 mediums, 4 safeties, spread things out and make sure that they're actually reaches, mediums, and safeties. There's another question here about for students who aren't able to afford tuition, but who may be able to qualify for aid. Now, I'm going to be fully honest. I am far from an expert on financial aid. So anyone who's tuning in today, what I'm going to do is I'm going to send you an introduction to someone I know who's an absolute genius on financial aid in every way, shape, and form, and also a couple of really great free online resources that'll help you to make these decisions because I don't want to ever give an answer to a question that I'm not fully qualified to answer. So that handles that as far as how many you should apply to. And that also goes to the next question.